Hello, it is Wednesday, April 8th, and we are ready for science. Today we are going to look at your activity manual page 155. It says at the top, it is a lesson from Answers in Genesis, and we are going to be talking about hearing and sound and how we can see God's plan in it and how we look at it through these pages help us to see things through Christian eyes. Okay? Now, oops, let me grab my Bible. Okay. Now, at the top it says the hearing ear. You probably take it for granted when you hear a sound. Your mom may have called you to breakfast this morning, or maybe you avoided stepping into the street because you could hear a car coming. Sound is an important part of our lives, but many people cannot hear a call for breakfast and are placed in harm's way when crossing the street. Now, look at question 1. If we want to help people who have hearing problems, would it be better to study hearing by thinking that it happened accidentally or by thinking that God had designed the ear in a special way? Why? Now I want you to think about this for a minute. If I want to understand it, what am I doing? And this is what scientists do. They study things. So if my ear works perfectly well to interpret sound and then it works with my brain to process that sound, then I should be studying the ear and how it works to use sound well, right? Well, that really is a design way of thinking it, that my ear is designed for interpreting sound. And so I study how a working one works, right? So, but if I were an evolutionist, I might say, how did this come to happen this way? And it might seem more as chance, and you might think that you actually have more wisdom and could create a better one. Remember, if you've done Bible already, we talked about today, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him. And that's what we should do when understanding things in nature and things in our bodies as well, is recognizing that God created them well and then trying to understand that and how it works. Now, so try to put that in your own words. How would it be different, the different people looking at it? People who do not believe in God think that the ability to hear happened as the result of random chance over billions of years. Basically, they think the ability to hear is an accident. But God is a giver of good gifts, and the ability to hear sound is one of those gifts. Okay, so then we have a couple of verses to look up. The first one is Psalms 94:9, and I'll read it to you. It says, He that planted the ear, shall he not hear? He that formed the eye, shall he not see? So it says, what does this tell you about the ear and hearing? Who designed it? God did. He gave us our ears and He gave us the ability to hear. Now look at Proverbs 20:12. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made even both of them. So what does that tell us? That God made the hearing ear and the seeing eye. He made them to be able to do what they are doing. So 3 says, do you think that physical conditions such as deafness existed when God created the world? What caused the world to change? So remember, at the beginning, God created the world to be perfect and a perfect display of His glory. So would deafness be part of that? No. What caused deafness to enter? Sin changed the world, right? Now, does that mean that the people who can't hear were sinners? That somehow they did something wrong or their parents did something wrong? Absolutely not. And let me remind you of a story we already read this year in John. chapter 9, remember they pass a blind man, and the disciples say, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? So they had this idea that because something was wrong with him physically, that it was either the man's fault or the parents' fault. So the idea that something wrong with your physical body is because God is somehow punishing you. Look at how Jesus answers. Jesus answered, Neither hath this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. Why was he made that way? So that God could be glorified. I've told you about my friend Tacey many, many times, who has cerebral palsy and who at birth almost died, and then has been crippled for her life, where her hand is pulled up like this. Her speech is different. One of her feet is kind of pulled up a little bit so that she walks a little differently. But God created her like that, and she has been a display of God's glory from the moment she took breath. And God has continued to work in her life. She is not imperfect. She is not in any way like worse than me. God is using her in magnificent ways, and we should see that with anyone who has different needs than we have. We shouldn't see them as somehow cursed, and that's exactly what Jesus said. This is so that God's glory could be revealed. So it says in verse 4, do people who cannot hear bear less the image of God? What does Exodus 4:11 tell us about God's sovereignty and people who cannot hear? So Exodus 4:11 says, And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth, or who maketh the dumb meaning can't speak. It doesn't mean not smart, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind. Have not I the Lord? So God is saying, I have made them. So it shows that he is perfectly sovereign over all that. And I would go back to the John passage too. And what does it say? That it is so that God's glory can be revealed. We've talked about this idea all throughout the year, about the idea of good and bad being so interwoven that we can't really call one thing good and one thing bad, because God uses all these things in our lives. If you don't have one weakness, if you don't have a problem, then you may not learn another strength that's helping you to overcome that. And we see that on the story on the back of the page. Look with me. It says, some people think that if you do not believe in evolution, you cannot be a real scientist or develop new cures. But there are many scientists who trust the Bible and reject evolution. Dr. Georgia Purdom has studied many areas of biology and taught many students to trust the Bible as they study science. She was born with a hearing problem. This made it hard for her to communicate with the people she wanted to teach and share God's truth with. She was feeling the effects of the fall and hoped for a cure. Thankfully, she was able to find a solution. A simple hearing aid could not help her, but there was a special device placed deep in her ear that could. It is called a cochlear implant. We have several in our school who have used those, right? And it is a thin wire that fits inside the cochlea deep within the ear. The cochlea is the part of the ear that turns vibrations into electrical signals that are sent to the brain. So in understanding how the ear works and how those parts go together, then someone can come up with something that will help people who aren't able to hear. Whether the designers of the device believe God exists or not, they imitated God's design of the ear. Because of the implant and therapy that followed, Dr. Purdom is now able to hear much better than before. Someone once told Dr. Purdom that she would not be able to hear unless the person working on her implant believed in evolution. She replied as follows, I am very thankful to all the scientists who have worked to develop the cochlear implant. It has profoundly changed my life for the better. It is likely that many of them did believe in evolution. However, Believing that humans evolved from a single-celled ancestor over billions of years had no bearing on their research. I pray that they will hear the truth and acknowledge that God is the creator of the human ear. Jesus said many times to the Pharisees that you have ears but you do not hear. And there are lots of people that have ears and it seems as if they're hearing, but they are not understanding. And they're rejecting the wisdom, exactly what we've been talking about in Proverbs. You can see it, you can hear it, you can look at it, and then you can turn directly away, and it will lead to destruction. As a result of people studying God's design of the body, Dr. Purdom can now communicate better. Her hope is that all people will be able to hear the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ and fully put their trust in Him. Obeying all that He has commanded in the Bible, how could God use you to share that good news? Okay, so now I had started teaching you the alphabet, and this is a wonderful time as we talk about people that are not able to hear to go ahead and finish that. I think we only made it to P, right? We ended here. So let's review. Let's start with A. Do this with me. A, B, C, D, one finger up, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, remember 3, M, N, O, and then P was that K upside down, P. Now Q is your thumb and your first finger, like this, turn down this way, Q. So facing the person, it's got the pointer and the thumb down, Q. R is your first and second finger like you're doing a 2, but then crossed, R. S is a fist, S, with your thumb on top of your fingers. And then T, puts your thumb after that first finger. So S, T. S, T. So go back to Q. Q, R, S, T. U is just 2 fingers straight up U. So it looks kind of like a U, but there's no space in between. U, V. Guess what W is? W. So that's easy. Let's do U, V, W. X is a crook. X. Y. So you have your 3 fingers down in the middle. Pinky out, thumb out. Y. Z. You just make the Z, like Zorro. Boop, 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 Z. Z. Okay, here we go. Ready? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Keep your wrist still. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Do you get it? Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and, this is and Z. Now here we go. Now, so take 2 Y's and go down in front of you. Now, I, so little finger on your chest. Now, I know, 2 fingers on your head, know my A, B, C's. Next, so we're going to have one hand behind the other one, and then we're going to pull it out front. Next, time, next time, won't or will. So your whole hand beside your ear and coming out. Will you sing? Put out one arm, put your left arm out in front of you, take your right arm and sweep across it like this. Okay, like you're conducting music on your arm. Sing with, Put your fists together. We did this one the other day with our Bible verse. With me. Okay, now we're going to do the alphabet song again. Here we go. Ready? A. Now, I have a tendency to do this. Don't jump your arm. Don't go A, B, C, D. Okay? Keep your elbow still. You can even put your other hand under your elbow to keep it propped and still. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? All right, good job. Keep it up. Now, in the comments below, I want you to give one example, either in our bodies or in nature, somewhere, any of the animals that you studied in the last chapter, any of the plants. Give one example of how God has designed something to do something specific. Okay, so for example, camels live in the desert, so God has designed them to be able to store water in their bodies. That's one example. So we were talking about ears. So give me another example of how God has designed something to survive or to work in a specific way. I'll be looking.